Cloud. Okie dokie. So, I guess maybe it's about time to start. So, it is my pleasure, everyone, to introduce Dr. Surendra Dara. And Dr. Dara has worked with the University of California A&R division for, I don't know, 6, 7 years, Surendra, or maybe more, 15?
14 years.
14, yeah, 14 years. See, I was really close. So 14 years. And so he just moved up to Oregon State. I think don't we have like somebody here from Oregon? No? Okay. That's probably in another class. Anyways, yeah, Steven, I think it's from Oregon. Anyways, okay, so, no, not Steven. Cole is from Oregon. Thank you. Okay, sweet. Yeah, better memory. So, Dr. Dara is gonna, well, he's throughout his career and maybe mostly while working in California, he did a lot of research on biologicals. He's an entomologist by education. So he did a lot of research on, of course, entomology, insect management, etc., but also on biologicals in agriculture. So things that you could add to the soil or to the crop that could either improve plant growth or help with maybe control diseases, etc. So and let's just try the voice projection, Surendra, before we keep going here. Can you try speaking for a second to see if they can hear you?
Yeah, can you hear me well?
Yeah, I can hear you, but I guess I'm the only one who can hear you.
Okay.
Let's see, maybe
How about the rest of the group?
system. Can you try again?
Hello. Good morning, everybody.
Yeah. Can you try again?
Good morning, everybody. Can you all hear me well?
Okay, now?
Hello. Mic testing.
Yeah.
They can.
Um,
Can they hear me now?
Can you try again?
Hello. Good morning.
It's very it's coming, but it's a little muted. Bubble. Yeah, that's. Okay, let's go. We'll see how it goes. Yeah, as you go. And so if you can just speak a little louder.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, maybe.
I hope you all can hear me, and if anything I have to repeat, just let me know. Good morning, everybody. Ashraf, thank you for inviting, and it's always nice to speak to your students or any students at Cal Poly, especially about biologicals and their role in agriculture. So since we have only 45 minutes kind of time slot, I will try to give an overview. I can't go in a lot of detail about any particular topic, but I will provide an overview of the various biologicals and how they can be used in agriculture. So I'm going to talk about, plant health management in general, IPM model, biologicals, induced systemic resistance in plants, and some strategies for using biologicals and insecticide resistance management, particular to biopesticides. So just looking at humans and plants, we have a lot in common, not in terms of the genes and some of the biological similarities, but what we need to grow, maintain good health, and so on. So some of our performance of life depends on our genetics, both for plants and humans. And then we also depend heavily on the environment, whether it is socioeconomic conditions for people or the kind of seasons or weather and the kinds of stress factors that the plants have. Then nutrition, the basic nutrition with major nutrients, and then we also need minor nutrients and supplements as needed to maintain an optimal health. And then when it comes to healthcare, again, you see a lot of similarities. accept that plants cannot move on their own and then defend themselves very much like we do. They have their own mechanisms, but here you can see the physical activity and then probiotics kind of things that we use now or naturally acquire them for gut health or other health factors. And we use a variety of things to maintain health, right? The same way plants also need natural supplements or natural processes, or sometimes we have to give them synthetic materials as needed. And then ultimately, to maintain good growth and health for crops, what they need is a comprehensive approach, whether starting from good genetics to growing them in good soil, adding all the organic matter, and having the beneficial microbes or beneficial arthropods into the system, so there is some level of natural control, and then provide other necessary economic and crop protection requirements. So when you have an understanding of what plants need compared to what humans need, you will see like a lot of similarities and then approaches that we can take, whether it is for our own health or plant health. Then the new IPM model, I just wanted to briefly discuss. This is something I published in 2019, compared to the old model where the focus is mainly on pest management. We have to look at other aspects of growing crops and having a comprehensive approach for protecting their health. So the pest management part is the same, because you have to start with the host plant resistance and use cultural practices and behavioral, biological, mechanical, and physical control and other things, and use synthetic materials as needed as well. And then how you use this knowledge and resources to understand the pest, its life cycle, and then decide what kind of options among these we can use depending on the pest and the location and then the crop, and then use the existing tools and technologies for effectively use the develop a pest management strategy. Then, regarding the planning and organization part of this IPM, we need to regularly monitor and manage information from season to season or year to year, or manage information related to the weather or soil conditions and how they impact a pest, arthropod pest or disease life cycle, and then their management. And then based on all this knowledge, growers have to take appropriate actions. Then another critical part is, you have all these tools and knowledge, but communication is also very important, because it is not just one farm, one pest, one disease. It is area-wide issues that we face. So a lot of times we need collective approach, whether to share the knowledge or implement area-wide practices for pest management. So regularly reading articles or attending continuing education opportunities and acquiring knowledge about these crop production practices, protection practices is very important for anybody involved in this, whether they are growers or crop care professionals. It's important, and it is important for researchers as well. And then they have to be communicated within their group and among grower communities. And a lot of times it is also important to communicate with the public about what crop production is and what kind of approaches that growers have to pursue to maintain good health of the plants and good returns, and then also ensure affordability of the produce for consumers. So at the core of the IPM, we have to have good research and then outreach. Then the other aspects are the business aspect of it, like how consumers and producers, sellers play a role in sustainable production practices, and then what is the bigger picture of all of this? Like, is our system economically viable, both for the farmers, and also is it socially acceptable I mean, both for the farmers and those who consume and those who sell. And is there enough environmental safety, not just about a particular practice, but the whole system of producing and distributing food? And then what kind of social factors are there that influence food production? So you can read the full article using this QR code here. I have a few QR codes here and there, so you might want to use if you would like to learn more about any of these topics. So this is just to give a snapshot of what IPM, integrated pest management, is, and where biologicals can be used. Not just about managing pests, but making it sustainable, both economically viable, environmentally safe, and acceptable to all strata of the society, and so on. And then biologicals in agriculture, what are they? Anything, any biotic or abiotic input of biological origin. That means, some of the biological and biotic is, self-explanatory. If you have an insect, a beneficial insect or microorganism you are using, that's obviously biological. But there are some biologicals that are, they don't have any living organism. They're derived from biological sources. So they all are considered as biologicals when they're used for crop production purposes or protection purposes. And then these are various categories we have: biocontrol agents, biopesticides, biostimulants, and soil amendments that, either to improve the soil structure or certain conditions, and non-pesticidal microbes, non-pesticidal biochemicals, and mineral-based. These are all different categories of biologicals that are used in agriculture. And then what are some general modes of action for these? Biocontrol agents. These are parasitoids or predators, right? So they basically parasitize arthropods or eat them, attack and eat them. Then biopesticides can, sometimes they work by contact, or sometimes they have to be ingested, and then they cause infection. And biostimulants, these don't have any pesticidal properties, according to the definition. They induce this resistance mechanisms in plant, and they help plants withstand these stressors. And then soil amendments, they improve the soil conditions, and then directly or indirectly promote plant health. And then these many beneficial non-pesticidal beneficial microbes, they improve nutrient and water absorption. They also sometimes help with improving the soil structure. And then other ones, these non-pesticidal biochemicals, are like pheromones, used to mainly for certain insects. They disrupt the mating, they mimic the natural pheromone, and then they confuse these insects so that they reduce mating as a result of that. But fewer offspring is seen in the coming seasons. And then we also have mineral-based biologicals that can be used as biopesticides or biostimulants and so on. Then what is the scope? There is actually a wide scope for biologicals. If you look at where biologicals, these are the ones you see on the left, are various kinds of control options. You see transgenic crops, like a gene, toxic gene from a bacterium inserted into these transgenic crops. That's a biological solution. Then cultural control, then biological control itself, behavioral control, physical or mechanical control, where you can treat the nettings or like the screens of the greenhouses with the biopesticides, and then microbial control and chemical control. So the scope of biologicals is everywhere, right? They can be used in all kinds of pest management practices. Then I will briefly explain each category here. So first, biocontrol agents. I don't know your background, so I hope you all understand all these basics, but you can always ask me or email me later if you have questions about any of this. So parasitoids are these wasps that parasitize either eggs or nymphs or larvae or adults of other insects. So then we have insects that feed on other insects, and then we also have mites. These are called predators, and then we have spiders too. These are all parasitoids and predators that provide certain level of control. One, there are different approaches here using these. One, you conserve what is there already, or you can also bring certain natural enemies from the native land when we have an invasive pest. So invasive pests are, we have a lot of them, like brown marmorated stink bug, and some of these are like Asian citrus psyllid that you might have heard of. So when we have invasive pests like that, we have to go to the native country, bring natural enemies that provide natural control there, and release them here if they, after they're proven to be safe in the new area. And then augmentative biocontrol is where you periodically release any of these. Like these could be commercially grown, or they usually they are commercially grown for release in crop production, either in the greenhouses or open fields. Since you are in San Luis Obispo, you know there is a lot of strawberry cultivation in that area, and predatory mites are very popular for controlling pest mites in strawberries. So they're released in open field production systems. And then biopesticides, then they could be based on microorganisms or microbial metabolites. They could be botanical extracts, or sometimes there are newer ones that are based on certain kinds of proteins or peptides and organic molecules. And then we also have biopesticides based on minerals. So the first one is the microbial insecticides or acaricides. These are called entomopathogens. Bacteria, fungi, microsporidia, and nematodes and viruses are major categories. We have commercially available formulations of all of them in the US except for microsporidia. So depending on the kind of this organism, either they can be ingested, as in the case of bacteria, or they can infect by contact. This is fungal spores. When they come in contact with insects or mites, they penetrate and multiply and kill the insect. Then microsporidia need to be ingested, and they attack the cytoplasm, mostly of fat bodies. Then these nematodes, tiny microscopic worms, they enter through natural openings, and they have mutualistic symbiotic bacteria that kill the host insect. So these nematodes crawl into their host, and with the help of the bacterium, there are multiple genera of nematodes that are associated with the two major bacteria. So they kill the host insect. Then we have these viruses. They need to be ingested too. Depending on the kind of virus, they attack certain tissues, but they are also very effective. Depending on what kind of microorganisms we have, some are very specific, some can be generalistic. They can be applied for a variety of pests. Then microbial fungicides. Then we have several bacteria and fungi, as you can see in these examples, that work against plant pathogens. They either antagonize the disease-causing organisms through their metabolites, or sometimes they parasitize or competitively displace them so that the pathogen doesn't have an opportunity to attack the host. And then microbial nematicides. Then again, we have some bacteria and fungi that can antagonize these nematodes, or then they can also parasitize, and some do cause infection. So there are again these to control parasitic nematodes, that plant parasitic nematodes can be controlled by bacteria and fungi. Then molluscicides. Then we have a nematode Phasmorhabditis, hermaphrodita, and then spinosad is a toxic metabolite from this Saccharopolyspora spinosa. And then we also have botanical material. So these are naturally occurring ones are derivatives of natural sources. Then microbe-based ones. Then we have two ivermectins from this bacterium and spinosad from another one. These are actually metabolites that are extracted from these microbes. And then we also have these two bacteria. These formulations do have the bacteria, but then they're killed. And so it is their metabolites in their cell walls or inside the cells. All of them act as biopesticides. So we have a couple of formulations of these as well. And then when it comes to botanicals, you really have a lot, because including people, all our bodies, any living organism is full of chemicals. They could be like carbohydrates, proteins, or enzymes, or various acids, and everything is chemical. And then especially plants have a lot more, either to attract pollinators, or to defend, or those that give them taste or color and so on. So plants are full of these chemicals, and some of them can be very effective biological solutions, either as biostimulants or pesticides. So here is that list of several materials from different sources. Then there are these organic compounds like polypeptide from sweet lupin. This is sold as a bio fungicide, and then we have a new formulation, new in the sense that it has been in the market for a few years. So they culture this spider venom peptide in yeast, and then they formulate it as a pesticide. And then chitosan is a complex carbohydrate material from shellfish, and that also acts either as a biostimulant or a biopesticide, depending on the target. So then we also have mineral-based ones, diatomaceous earth. This is a fossilized diatoms. Then we have sulfur and mineral oils. These are all mineral-based products, and they're mostly used as pesticides. Then these are not biologicals, but I just want to show what are some synthetic materials based on biological molecules. So ivermectin is the natural one. The researchers slightly modify the molecule so that it can be more stable and sometimes safer, and then it can also be selective and easy to mass produce. So these are produced like the ivermectins versus the synthetic analog ivermectin. Pyrethrins are natural, and pyrethroids are synthetic. The nicotine from tobacco, and the neonicotinoids, and then spinosad and spinetoram. So these are variations. So when we are talking about synthetic materials, which are generally seen as bad inputs in agricultural systems, but we do have similar natural ones too. So there are good and bad ones all along. We just need to know how effectively we can use. If you recall the first slide where I compared human and plant health, just like we take medicines as needed, they're synthetic materials, but we take them as prescribed. So when it comes to plant health, we need to follow those guidelines of pesticide use and how much to use, when to use, and so on. Then I forgot about this. This is actually strobilurin from these mushrooms, and then there are several fungicides based on that one. So it is a synthetic analog. Then there are a lot of complex interactions. Each organism or mineral or like a synthetic or natural material has certain properties or behavior. So we need to understand how each of them interact and use them as appropriate. And some of them, as I have been referring are not just pesticides, they could be biostimulants, or they could be insecticides, or they can be miticides or fungicides, depending on the strain or quantity or what kind of active ingredient it has. So it's very important to understand them so that we use them effectively and appropriately. And then now coming to induced resistance, I just wanted to check the time. So induced resistance is a natural defense mechanism, and we are trying to induce, but this is also naturally induced when plants are exposed to pathogens or also beneficial microorganisms and some materials. So using this concept, researchers are now developing these products that increase the resistance power of plants. So here, the first one is when you have these pathogens or insects or some kinds of chemicals, when plants are exposed to them, there is this salicylic acid pathway that is triggered, genes related to this pathway are triggered, and sometimes the proteins that are related to the infection process are also produced in response to these stressors to protect the plant. So this particular system is called systemic acquired resistance, or SAR. Then the other one is when plants come across beneficial microbes, they trigger another set of pathways. This is jasmonic acid pathway or ethylene pathway, and sometimes these pathogenesis related proteins are also produced. So this is called induced systemic resistance. So when they're exposed to harmful ones, it is systemic acquired resistance. Then when they're exposed to beneficial ones or mutualistic ones, it is induced systemic resistance. And both are called induced resistance in plants. So this is what can happen, and some materials can cause both, depending on, again, the virulence of a particular strain. It could be a pathogen, or it could be just like a vaccine. So this is so when we are exposing plants to these beneficials, it acts like a vaccine, preparing plants for potential attack by pests and pathogens. So there are a lot of these microbiological options, both for plant production and plant protection. I quickly want to show, like, these are bacteria, fungi, and nematodes and viruses here for pest control. Then we have these bacteria and fungi for disease control. Similarly, bacteria and fungi that they can have other properties too, but these species in the bottom left, they are typically used to improve soil health. And then there are, again, a variety of bacteria, fungi, and yeast that are used as for biostimulation. So there are numerous microbes and there's several formulations that have one or more of these. So depending on what it is and what we are looking for, one or more of these can be used. And then in these biologicals, I also want to show that pollinators can be used to deliver microbial pesticides and some materials for controlling certain diseases and pests as well. For example, you equip these beehives with certain receptacles, so where you put this microbial pesticide. So when bees are exiting their hives, they pick up this inoculum. This could be fungal spores. Usually they use fungi. The fungal spores that control diseases, like, because they go and visit the flowers, so there can be diseases like botrytis, fruit rot that starts in the flowers and fruit areas. So it can directly bees, pollinators can directly deliver the inoculum to the target area. And the same way, entomopathogenic fungi can also be delivered for controlling certain pests. So this has been experimented for several years, but only in the recent 5 to 8 years, there are some commercial opportunities available. Like some companies are developing developing a custom-made hives and then some of these microbial pesticides to be delivered by bees. And then this is a chart I put together, I think 2-3 years ago. This is really a comprehensive, biopesticide categories for controlling arthropods and diseases, nematodes, mollusks, and weeds. It's very difficult to have these, not just these categories, but within these, like some people put them in different areas. So I had to do extensive, reading and research to make sure that we have right categories for them. So especially for arthropod control, you have a lot like bacteria, fungi, nematodes, viruses, botanical materials, and then toxins, and then these minerals and other options. So with more advancements, some of these can change, right? Like we can always update and add more categories and more materials, but this is a fairly comprehensive so far. And then I want to briefly talk about plant biostimulants, because they're part of these biologicals, and also I mentioned about that induced resistance in plants. So what are plant biostimulants? These could be microorganisms, microbial derivatives, materials of mineral, marine, or botanical origin. The main thing here is they stimulate plant physiological responses to induce systemic resistance and improve nutrient and water uptake. In the process, they promote plant growth and health, or they can also impart tolerance to these biotic and abiotic stressors. And the main point is they should not have any nutritional value or pesticidal properties, because if they have nutritional value, then they become fertilizers. If they have pesticidal properties, they become pesticides, not biostimulants. So there is some concern about some of these biostimulants, because these are less regulated than pesticides. So there can be a lot more products in the market. But you may recall, I mentioned earlier that some of these microbes or mineral or any of those materials could have pesticidal properties too, depending on how they are used. So this is an area where regulatory agencies are looking at revising the registration process. But as of now, this is what it is. These are biological products that stimulate plant growth and defenses without having any nutritional or pesticidal values. Then there are a lot of categories. These could be vascular mycorrhizal fungi, entomopathogenic fungi, these plant growth promoting rhizobacteria, those that are the proteins were materials from protein hydrolysis, or humic substances, algal extracts, botanical extracts, silicates and phosphites, and chitosan that I mentioned earlier. So there are several categories, and then they can be used in different ways. They can be used to treat the seeds or treat the transplants, or they can be applied in the production field, either to the soil or as foliar application. Then how do they work? They do a lot of things, as discussed earlier. They either induce systemic resistance, or they improve soil structure. They probably don't do anything to the plant directly, but they improve the soil microbial activity and porosity and water retention capacity and organic matter and so on. So they improve soil structure, and sometimes they increase the beneficial microbial activity. They don't have those microbes, but they supply food to beneficial microbes and support their populations. Or they could also induce systemic resistance, like those that are foliar applied. So these are the typical action mechanisms. And what they do is to the plant is they increase photosynthesis, antioxidative enzyme activity, volatile organic compound production. They can also, depending on what is applied, if it is silicates or some of those materials, they strengthen plant tissues, improve nutrient and water use, and also mobilization within the plant. And they also increase stress tolerance. This leads to increased root growth, shoot growth, yields, quality of shelf life, attractiveness to biological control agents, beneficial microbial activity on the plant or in the soil, and as a result, reduced pest and disease levels and their damage. Ultimately, this leads to additional benefits of we don't have to apply a lot of water and nutrients because these are cycling them effectively and keeping them in the soil so that making them more available to the plant. And then we don't have to apply a lot of pesticides because by the systemic resistance is kicking in and protecting plants. And then it also reduces the risk of resistance, pesticide resistance from excessive application. And we are increasing the biological and microbial control options, ability to grow crops under unfavorable conditions, which would, if there is a high salt content, then some of these biostimulants can remediate and then help plants grow under those stressful conditions. Then they improve the environmental health, optimize the production cost because you can save on applying nutrients or pesticides and water. And ultimately they increase the returns. And this leads to, when biostimulants can be used as a part of cultural control in IPM. They're not pesticides, but they are used to improve crop health as a part of cultural control, and that leads to sustainable food production. There is a book chapter on this topic, just around the different categories and how they can be used. So you can download and read that one when you get a chance. And then finally, mechanisms of insecticide resistance. Here, I'm not going to go into the details and examples. You can read the article on in my electronic journal. So what happens, that when we use pesticides more than necessary, repeatedly using the same kind or using higher quantities, insects or mites or arthropods develop resistance. We all know that. So the mechanisms are generally the behavior. Insects change their behavior so that they are less exposed to these pesticides. And then they also have some metabolic and other pathways so that the penetration of the insecticide is reduced into their body. And then the target side inside, whether it is like a certain tissue, like insect neurons or fat bodies or other tissues, then the target site where it attaches also changes as a part of resistance development. And then the increased sequestration, they get rid of these toxic materials and then also use metabolic changes. And sometimes they have these symbionts that protect them. They make these pesticides less toxic. So this is both for synthetic materials and some biological pesticides too. So that's why it is important, whether it is a biological, natural, or whatever it is, we need to use them appropriately. And again, a detailed article is available. You can use it, you read it using that QR code. And then I have several talks about different topics, invasive pests, like pesticide resistance, and other things that you can go to my YouTube channel and watch any of those if you have interest. Then if you don't mind taking 1 second, it has 2 simple questions. So I appreciate your feedback. And then this is the end of my talk, and I'm ready to answer any questions you may have. I think we have some time.
Well, thank you very much, Surendra. Yeah, so we give them 2 minutes. You think, or less, to do this survey?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so let's do the survey really quick, and then I'll take this afterwards. My son's calling. Yeah. Kelby, are you here? Did you get this, Ben?
Yeah, like first question is where you located?
Okay.
Are we saying like Poland or are we saying like
Yeah, like what are they?
Done, everybody done?
So what how do you want them to answer the first question? Where do you live or where do you state
Oh.
and country? Okay.
Yeah, San Luis Obispo, yeah.
Yeah. All done? Almost. And a quick question for you, Surendra. Do you mind sharing the PDF of like the slideshow, or we just rely on the whatever you feel?
I can share it, that's not.
Okay, so because yeah, like you shared a few QR codes and for them, kind of to use them, I think it might just be easier to scan them off the PDF. Awesome. So thank you very much for the great presentation. Questions now.
Thank you.
Questions. Yeah, I have a question. Yeah, for them, while they kind of through the
You don't want me to leave disappointedly. You all have to ask questions. Otherwise, I would
They
feel
will
like
ask
you
questions.
didn't hear
I'm
me.
sure. I'll just get them. Yeah, I'll just get them going here. Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
And yeah, so that you see me. Yeah, I'm here. Okay, I was like really hiding, so. Okay, so Surendra, from your experience, using those kind of, I'd stick to the like last portion of your slideshow. Like yeah, talking about the biologicals and biostimulants, etc. So some farmers have tried them and they come back and say they don't work or they work, like hit or miss. And I know in the past you have shared also, like some actual numbers and results from your trials. So what is your take at this? How would you? Yeah.
That is a great question. See, it all depends on where they're using and what they're using it for. Sometimes, it is all about using the right material at the right concentration. And some of these materials, if it is a pesticide, you see the impact in terms of, reduction in disease or, reduction in pest population. So you see it clearly, whether it is working or not. But when it comes to biostimulation, it is like maintaining good health. When you are healthy, you don't know what is actually supporting maintaining your good health, right? Is it your diet or exercising or like taking mineral supplements or doing things that contribute, right? So biostimulant effect sometimes is hard to detect because plant just seems to be doing fine. You need to show what it could do if it didn't have, right? Sometimes that part is difficult. Uh, but in my studies, some did well and some did not do well. So the fact is, like, not all materials are necessarily working well, and it could be because of the concentration and application frequency, and maybe there was no issue. The system that is being tested already works well, so biostimulants don't have added benefits. So we need to understand that. Then when it comes to biopesticides, there is a lot of evidence of very effective control from several of them. That is more established. But again, if you don't use them correctly, like these are, if, for example, if there is a biopesticide with the live microorganisms, you need to follow the shelf life protocols and how you apply and what you can mix them with in the tank mix if there are other materials that are not compatible with it. So what sometimes we notice is the lack of knowledge for proper use. So that's also the reason. And if it is a synthetic material, it could probably work against all life stages. But when you are using microbes, sometimes it is effective only against a particular life stage, or it needs to be applied with certain conditions. So it is the knowledge, mainly if the bottom line for this is, if you know how these things work very well, which one can be used for, what purpose, then you have better success.
Cool. Other questions?
Don't be shy. We still have a few more minutes.
No, they're so shy, no, they're pretty good. They give me a hard time with their questions sometimes. They're being polite, I guess, but they're pretending to be polite. Okay, so question.
That's all right. If you don't have anything, that's fine.
Clear? Yeah, so yeah, just to follow up on that, like on your answer. So when you use like something like bacillus or trichoderma or some of those like well, trichoderma is a fungus, bacillus is bacteria, but you mentioned plant promoting or plant growth promoting rhizobacteria, right? Like, does it help more when you have already a disease, or does it help if you apply it before you have a disease? Like, can you elaborate a little bit on the context, or maybe use those and when you kind of see an effect versus when you don't see an effect?
Yeah, that I didn't fully hear, but I think I understood your question. So when it comes to plant growth promoting rhizobacteria, any of the biostimulants, one thing that people might miss, even the commercial producers, is the right volume. So if you are looking at this like a vaccination, right? Vaccine or stimulation, applying more than necessary could actually stunt the plant growth. In a study, I saw that the company is trying to develop the appropriate rate, and at a lower concentration, it was just fine. But when we increased the concentration, all the strawberry plants were stunted. It is a stimulant, but it can only tolerate certain amount. So whether it is PGPR or something, right concentration is important. And when to apply, before or after disease. In most cases, biostimulant should be applied before, like more like a preventive or prophylactic measure, not like a curative measure.
And I'm just being curious here, and yeah, sorry, yeah, we're starting kind of the discussion here. Just being curious, yeah, really quick. Also following up on your answer, do you remember the name of that material that they found when you apply too much of it? It can be kind of negative for plants.
Yeah, I think it is a botanical oil, and it is also chitosan material. These two were not doing very well because optimal rate is also important.
Okay, cool. And Owen has a question here.
I guess I just want to know, I've actually been doing a little bit of research into like biostimulants and what and some of their potential. I guess I'm just a little unclear on like what their potential actually could be. I just want to know if you thought that they could replace conventional fertilizers at some point, or if you think they just better used in conjunction.
And just to give you context here, this is, as you know, this is an organic management class, so focused on organic inputs.
Yes. So the question was if biostimulants can replace fertilizers, right? Is that the question?
Yeah.
They're not supposed to, because they're not fit nutrition. They should not have any nutritional value, right? So some of them, as they're made, like if it is like some kind of amino acid base or some, they can have some nutritional value, but they're not supposed to replace fertilizers. So biostimulants can make fertilizers or nutrients in the soil, or the ones you apply, more available or more effectively or efficiently used by the plant, but they should not be a replacement, substitute for them.
Another question? Okay, well, thank you very much, Surendra. And
thank you.
we really appreciate sharing all that experience and taking an hour out of your precious time to talk to us here. So we really appreciate it, and have a great day. And
thank you.
We'll keep in touch.
Thank you. You too. Thanks for having and all the best, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Okay, so. Thank. And then